Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Amphibia, episodes 14 and 15. Yeah, we're doing two this time. Not really any real reason, I just wanted to do two this time. So yeah, fun. And I wanted to say something like right off the bat. I mentioned this like in another video before, like I don't know how long ago, because again, these are pre-recorded, so it's like gotta try to remember like how exactly everything times out. But I mentioned in another video that after I finish season 1 of Amphibia, we're going to be switching things around a little bit, just to deal with adding in a slot for a new poll reaction series. So this basically says we are going to be finishing season 1, and yeah, I'm pretty committed to doing so at this point. If for no other reason than hopefully by the end of the season to see more Sasha. But I'm interested enough in it because there are these really good episodes every now and again that I do really enjoy. Even if a lot of this just doesn't like connect with me as much as stuff like The Owl House or Ghost of Molly McGee, it's like there are specific moments in episodes that I do really like, and it's enough to keep me invested in at least finishing the season. I cannot say where we'll go after that. I can't. We're gonna finish the season out, and by the end of the season, obviously, I'll know more. And at that point, I think I'll decide whether or not we're gonna continue with season 2 in the future. But I can't say right now. It's really gonna depend on how the rest of this season goes and how it ends and everything. Because again, while there's a lot to like, there's also a lot that just kind of bores me. Anne, for example, is just a really boring main character. There's nothing really to hate about her, but there's nothing really to love about her either. She's just bland. It's just really boring. Like you compare this to like the likes of Luz or Molly, and it's like it's not even comparable. They're so much more interesting. They have so much more personality and depth and humor to them. They just feel like more complete characters. Anne just feels kind of blah. Her weirdness just feels like weirdness for the most part. Just to have weirdness in there. And she just doesn't like really do or act in any way that makes her stand out. Like personality wise, just in the things she does, the things she's into. Like the biggest moment for her, for me so far, was that episode where she opened up the restaurant, or not really opened it up, but revitalized the restaurant, and put her like family's culture and influence into it, as well as her own experiences to be able to make it, something really unique, special, and culturally significant for the series. That was the one moment in this series so far where Anne felt like a really good, interesting character. That's it. And that's not the greatest thing. And the problem is I don't like a lot of the other main characters as much either. Hop Pop and Sprig are also just kind of boring. they're they're your generic archetypes for characters. Sprig is your well-meaning but hyperactive and goofy kid, and Hop Pop is a kindly but sometimes stuck in his ways old man character. It's like they're kind of paint by numbers, honestly. Polly is the only one who's like really fun to watch because she's just crazy in the funniest way. She's obsessed with weapons. She's just kind of a wild child, but like to an extreme level. She's the most interesting character in this besides Sasha. And I like Sasha because she's kind of conniving. Like, not in a mean way or anything. She's definitely not a mean girl character like Amity started out to be, or like, I don't know, like Pacifica from Gravity Falls, or I can't really count Andrea from Ghost and Molly McGee because she, outside of the first episode, she was never actually a mean girl. It was like literally that one time, and the only reason I think she acted like that is because Molly kept continuously getting her name pronunciation wrong, and it just annoyed her. So I really wouldn't count Andrea like that. But yeah, it's like Sasha doesn't come across like that at all. She's actually like pretty nice. She's definitely an opportunist and definitely likes to take control of things, as we saw in the episode we saw her in so far. But yeah, it's like I feel just not really anything mean about her at the moment. But we'll see how that goes. And it's like she and Polly are the most interesting characters just because they feel more fully complete in their concepts. They have more interesting factors to them and don't feel just kind of generic to me. But at least there are some plots and some episodes that are really interesting or really fun or just over the top goofy, that can definitely appeal to me, but a lot of it doesn't. And so I'm kind of still on the fence with this series. I'm committed to finishing out season 1, but where we go from there at this point is up in the air. And again, as I've stated in the past, I do know some of the places that this show heads just due to, even before like I really started giving this a chance, or even when I originally like dropped this, like I saw stuff on like social media and all. It's like, so I knew some parts of where this was going, and I don't know all the context and everything. I just know like basically screenshots and little things that I've seen on social media, but even so, I'm not invested in this series as much yet. And I'm hoping that changes. I really am. As with anything I watch on this channel or otherwise, I want to love this. And I'm hoping that it changes my mind and proves me wrong. And so far, overall, it has not. But it has proven that it has the potential to. And so that's kind of got to be enough for the moment. And it's really all I've got to like kind of latch onto, I guess you could say. Because if I wasn't holding out hope for that, basically, I probably would have dropped this again already. But it's because of those little things that give it some level of opportunity for the future. It's because of those things that makes me interested enough to continue to give it a chance. And so we're just going to kind of have to see how it goes. And I know a lot of you are very invested in this series. I know a lot of people in general are very invested in the series. I know a lot of people love this. Some people even more than Owl House, believe it or not. And while that doesn't really make sense to me, it doesn't make sense to me. It's subjective. It's all based on personal tastes and what appeals to each person. For me, it's like this series just isn't doing it as much outside of a few little hints at something better. But for other people, this is their shit. This is the shit they like. So it's just one of those things that we're going to have to wait and find out on. And hopefully it ends up turning things around in this later part of the season. Because I really, really want it to. But again, I don't know like what's going to happen episode to episode, and again, I don't even know like when the things that I saw exactly happen. So I only know a few small things basically, and again, completely out of context. So I don't know what's going to happen in these episodes. I don't know what to expect. When things come up that I did hear about, I'll let you know. But in the meantime, we're just going to get into this episode. And as always, hope for the best. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episodes. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, first things first, I had to look this up here. Are bullfrogs cannibalistic? And here's something I found here. Bullfrogs, contrary to popular belief, aren't just selective eaters who only eat flies. They eat snakes, spiders, scorpions, rodents, eggs, insects, fish, and anything else that comes their way, including other frogs and even native frog species. So bullfrogs in general are cannibalistic. In fact, it seems like they're just very much, it just seems very much they'll eat anything. Practically, as long as it's obviously something they can eat. So that's a thing. That's a fun fact to find out. But yeah, there was some good stuff this time. This was actually a really good set of episodes here. Both of them and the 4 minisodes contained within all were really pretty good for the most part. Not all of them were amazing, but all of them were pretty good. So let's talk about them one at a time. So Snow Day. Snow Day talks about hibernation. And apparently in Amphibia, in this world, it's only 1 day a year instead of, just an entire winter. There's 1 day a year when the temperatures go below the, as they called it in the episode, the frog line. I would just call it the freezing line. It's like, why do you have to put frog in there? It's like, that just doesn't feel necessary. But it's like 1 day a year, the temperatures go below that, and all of them kind of go into this frozen hibernative state where they basically just get encased in ice for a day. And normally every year, one person from the village disappears forever. And as we find out later, that person dies. Which is really fucking horrific, and yeah, okay. We'll talk about that more in a bit. But Anne, since she's there now and doesn't need to hibernate, decides to use the time to watch over them, but messes it up and accidentally gets Polly kidnapped. She follows the leads after unthawing wrongfully unthawing Sprig before the time. And while Sprig is just kind of drunk, like that, it's kind of like clearly pointing him to be drunk. Um, they end up locating Polly in a creepy cave, which is inhabited by a mother weasel and her babies. And we find out pretty quickly that, yeah, like I said, all the frogs that had been taken in previous years had gone to, I guess, these weasels and had been used to feed their young. And in and of itself, this is a very horrific reveal, because it's like this show has shown by now, and especially with these episodes today, that it is not afraid to tell us that these characters have died, like have actively been violently murdered by other creatures. This series is not shying away from the darkness of this world, the scariness of nature, basically. And I actually really like that. It's one of the best aspects of this show for sure. Um, so while Anne and Sprig try to fight the weasel at first, they end up seeing the babies, and Anne ends up giving it her omelet that she had made earlier, and that ends up working. The weasel is able to feed its babies, and she gets Polly back. And at the end, she does come clean to everyone how she messed up and everything. And yeah, it's a really nice episode that delves into the fact that these frogs do need to hibernate, as well as delivers an aspect of horror into that, which, as I said in the reaction, with another episode that I will be talking about, another mini-sode, I like it when non-horror shows bring in horror elements, or even just episodes fully themed around horror. It's just always, like, really great. Again, I stated this in some points in the past, but probably my favorite example of that is Jack in the Haunted House from Samurai Jack, or even Abracadaver from Powerpuff Girls. Both of those are phenomenal examples of that. But anyways, next we had Cracking Mrs. Croaker, and this one started off weaker to me, but actually got really exciting in the end, but also proved a point for me. So, Sprig, for some reason, is just suddenly liked by everyone. Despite this not really being a thing before, it's just suddenly it's revealed that, oh, everybody just likes him. He's just a town darling. He's just super popular. It's like, where did this come from? Since when was this a thing? It's literally an out of nowhere thing that really never had any precedence before. And I was really not enjoying that aspect. But we find out that Mrs. Croaker is apparently the only one who doesn't like him. So, ignoring what Anne tells him, he decides to break into Mrs. Croaker's house to try and just figure out how to make her like him, which is really fucked up for a lot of reasons. When there, he finds a box of secrets, including photos of this frog named Jonah, including where he is. Sprig goes out, finds him, and leads him to the house, at which point we find out that he is trying to assassinate Mrs. Croaker. And according to this, I might have missed this in the episode, but apparently, like, he is a straight-up assassin, and Mrs. Croaker was a spy, and that they were, like, arch enemies. I might have missed that in the episode. And so he tries to kill her here, and she ends up being a badass and stopping him. And then has a little heart-to-heart with Sprig, talking about how not everyone's going to like him and all, and then she says she's going to try to tolerate him. He takes it as like, oh, she likes me after all, and it's like, that's not really what she said, but okay. It gets really good in the end with Mrs. Croker being a spy and the assassin stuff. Like, that stuff really caught me off guard. Like, I was thinking he was just going to be kind of this creepy stalker. I thought that's where the twist was going to go. Like, he seemed a little weird and creepy when Sprig found him, so I'm thinking, oh, he's a stalker, isn't he? This is going to be weird and creepy and uncomfortable. And then he ends up being an assassin. It's like, oh, that went in a little bit of a different direction than I expected. But not unwelcomed. I really liked that aspect of the episode, but overall, it wasn't as exciting to me as 14A was. I just feel like 14A was a little better, and 14B just kind of made up some stuff randomly, like, again, with Sprig being well liked by everyone and all of that. The stuff with Mrs. Croker and Jonah were great, but the stuff about Sprig and being liked by everyone and all was, I wasn't a fan of that. But then we get to episode 15. This one was overall the better episode for me, and had my favorite mini-sode of these two episodes. So 15A is my favorite of these four mini-sodes of the two episodes. Yeah. A Night at the Inn. So, as Anne and the planters are heading down the road, Bessie breaks down, begins to rain, their tent is destroyed by God, apparently. I'm joking, I know it was just lightning, but still. Just the coincidentalness of it. And they end up having to stay at this bed and breakfast called the Dandelion Inn. And they go in, it seems very nice, very comfy. They ring the bell, this bullfrog couple comes out. The instant they come out, it just clicks in my head, they're evil. Like, just without hesitation, the instant I saw them, the instant they spoke, these two were evil. It's like, it's a trope. It's a character trope for bad guys to be kind of introduced as like this nice elderly couple. It's been used in many things. I mentioned Supernatural as a great example in the reaction. It very much reminded me of that. So these bullfrogs come out, and Polly is, during all this time, being kind of treated as a baby, because she is. Like, she's literally a baby, but we know she's able to handle herself. But Hop Pop is treating her like a baby and like thinking she can't handle anything. So she manages to trick him into getting a separate adjoining room to his, and when he falls asleep, she just kind of goes crazy and just tries to have like a lot of independent fun. Because she's trying to, she likes being independent. That's just the kind of free spirit her character is. And then the nightmare fuel begins. Because, first of all, we see that skeleton, which I used in the thumbnail. Of course I was going to use that. That was legitimately scary. Because it just kind of came out of nowhere. And just the sound effect, the visuals of it turning its head and the eyes lighting up and everything, it's like, oh my god. I was not expecting that. But I love it. And then we do get the confirmation that the bullfrogs are cannibals as Polly goes through the vents and ends up seeing that they have kidnapped Hop Pop and Sprig and are literally trying to cook and eat them as we speak. And apparently the cookies that these bullfrogs had been giving them were laced with a sleeping agent. So it's like, oh. And it's like, it's really freaking good. And it's like really got me invested and hooked in. And then Polly manages to save them. getting them out. And as everyone else escapes, Anne notices, oh, hey, look, vinegar and baking soda. I know science. I can chemistry. I did it. I'm going to do a science. She just, you know what happens with that. So as the others are escaping, though, they end up finding Bessie in a barn and realize that she has been, the reason she slowed down, the reason she had trouble before is because she slid into a trap. So we find that out. And then we get the reveal that these bullfrogs had been doing this for a while with a number of travelers. We see a bunch of these snails, including one that just says just hitched, just married. And it's like, oh, that's fucking sad. These cannibalistic bullfrogs have actively lured in a just married couple, killed and eaten them. Like, that's really fucking sad. That depresses me. And again, like I said with the Snow Day episode, it's like, I know this show at this point is not afraid to go into telling us that these characters, that frogs die and everything, and that this world is extremely scary. But my God, that's depressing. That's more depressing than scary at that point. If they didn't have the Just Hitch sign, it would be more scary, but that made it sad. And it's like, oh, I was not prepared for feels. But they manage to get out of there, and Hop Hop learns to start giving Polly a little more independence and treating her more like, just in general, a person rather than a baby. But she, and as well Anne and Sprig, decide to spend the night in the same room as Hop Hop anyways for that night, just because, a traumatizing experience. Which is completely fair. That was something I just was not expecting. And the thing is, when you're watching the episode and when they come out, it's like you see exactly where it's all going. Like, oh yeah, they're evil. They're most likely cannibals. It's like you get all of that right away. Polly, you can tell because of what's already shown that Polly's going to be the one to save the day. Yeah, you get all of that right away. It's very predictable. But as I said in the reaction, and as I've said many times, predictability does not equate to being bad. It depends on how it's executed. This was executed extremely well. Like, this was one of the best episodes of this series so far. I don't know if I would say it's the best, especially when we had the episode with Sasha, which I think was episode 10. But it's up there for me. And it was just really well executed. It had a legitimate scare in it, had legitimate sadness. And even though you knew what was going to happen, it still made it believable, and you still got to see some really cool stuff come out of it. I loved it. And again, it's a Polly episode too, and I love Polly. She's my favorite of the main cast. So it's like you have my favorite of the main cast. You have a horror-themed episode that is executed extremely well. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna love this episode. But our last one of the day was Wally and Anne, 15B. So Anne ends up seeing this Princess Mononoke style moss man that is just fucking majestic as hell. Like, they went all out for designing that. I have to think it was inspired by Princess Mononoke. Like, the visuals, the lighting, even the like glowing butterflies and everything just very much reminded me of the forest spirit from Princess Mononoke, the deer-like forest spirit. It was very much a similar kind of thing, even though the forest spirit was, again, deer-like, but it still has the same vibe to it. I kind of want it to have been a reference to that in a way. But it also seems more like a Bigfoot kind of thing, because no one believes her, everyone thinks it's a myth. And the only one who's ever talked about the Moss Man before has been Wally, who is, the town kook. So Anne and Wally decide to go on a journey to find it, to get a picture and prove that it's real. Um, but along the way, Anne discovers that she and Wally are both weirdos and that she actually might kind of like Wally, especially when he saves her life and her phone as well. um, but she actually kind of bonds with him quite a bit. And at the end, as they're continuing to follow the trail of the Moss Man, she finds it and has a chance to get a picture, but Wally falls, and she has to choose to save him instead. It's a great turnaround, and again, comparing things, because I do that. This reminds me of the episode of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, The Lost Treasure of Griffinstone. When they're searching for the lost treasure, the Idol of Borealis, and in the end, Gilda has to choose between getting the idol or saving Rainbow Dash, and she chooses Rainbow Dash. It's very much the same kind of idea with that, obviously just with a few details different, besides, the obvious. But yeah, it does remind me of that, and that's a good thing, because I really like that episode of MLP. I actually really liked that episode. It actually handled Gilda's redemption really well. So that's a good thing that it reminded me of that. And basically, in the end, Anne just kind of stops caring what other people are going to think of her, but also stops worrying about Wally being a weirdo, and she accepts it and embraces it. Though she does get a little upset when she finds out that he never actually saw the Moss Man, like he said, and he thought it was a myth as well. So that's a thing. But yeah, she definitely bonds with him quite a bit, and it's a nice episode. Again, the Princess Mononoke Moss Man is very, very cool. I love the design. I love the just mystical air about it. And it has a really good message to it, so I enjoyed it. So both of these episodes were very enjoyable. 14 and 15, the weakest mini-sode of them was definitely Cracking Mrs. Croker, only because of the Sprake stuff. That brought it down enough to be the weakest of these 4 mini-sodes. Wally and Anne was not that much better, though, comparatively. It was still good, and even Cracking Mrs. Croker was good in the end, but it's like just comparatively. Snow Day and Night at the Inn were definitely the 2 best of these, with Night at the Inn definitely taking the crown as the top dog in this set of episodes. It was that damn good. And so yeah, overall, I really liked both of these, 14 and 15. Overall, they were both really good episodes, and it's like, yes, this is what I want to see. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong like Anne was proven wrong about Wally. Or Hop Hop was proven wrong about Polly, or so on and so forth. Just prove me wrong and show me that this series can be really good like this. Give me episodes like this that really excite me. But the one thing I will say that I haven't mentioned yet, I wanted to leave this to the end, is that pretty much all of these episodes, but especially actually the Craggy Mrs. Croker one, kind of continues to prove my point on Anne being a really boring main character. Because we get to see all of these exciting, fun, interesting characters that keep having all of this great depth and just excitement pushed on them. And it just makes Anne seem weaker as a main character by default. Like, with what they did with Mrs. Croker in that episode, by revealing that she's a spy and a badass, and she has an assassin out to kill her and everything, it's like, she's just... It just makes Anne seem so much lesser. And the fact that Anne is the main character and all of these side characters and everything are just so much better characters than her kind of makes me really sad. And don't get me wrong, because a lot of these shows have side characters who in a lot of ways are better than the main characters. With Owl House, yeah, Luz is not like the best character in that show, especially when you have characters like Amity or even Ida to a point. I love Luz though, and that's the big difference. Luz is still very exciting, very interesting, and very likable and fun. Anne doesn't have that to help that out. That's the difference. You have the Ghost of Molly McGee. Of course, I like Andrea and Libby better than Molly, but I still love Molly because she's interesting, she's funny, she's fucking crazy at times, which is amazing. But I still love her, and it's like she that doesn't it helps her still stand out even when other characters can be better. Anne doesn't have that. Anne is boring. Like, there are certain moments where, like, she's like, oh yeah, I enjoyed this moment with her or whatnot, but there's nothing that makes her really stand out. And when pretty much all the other characters are more interesting than her, she really just kind of falls to the wayside for me. And that's not the best thing. You want the main character, the one you're, focusing on the most throughout the series, to be not necessarily the best character, but to be someone that is exciting and interesting and unique and special and really stands out. And it's just, Anne is like the only character in this who really isn't standing out in any way. Sprig is kind of on the fence. But even he has more moments of excitement and interest than Anne does. I just, again, I don't hate Anne by any means. I wouldn't even say I dislike her. She's just meh for me. She's very blah. She's not anything special. She's not anything great. She doesn't stand out. She's not exciting to watch. She's not interesting. Honestly, like I said in episode 10, or maybe I mentioned in episode 11, why can't we have Sasha as the main character? She's more interesting. She has a better personality. She's more fun to watch. She's just so much better of a character. I really kind of wish we were following her the entire time. Anne feels like a side character, and a main character shouldn't feel like a side character. That's the biggest thing I feel. And it's really disappointing, and it's one of my biggest flaws with this series for me. And one of the big reasons why I don't consider it to be on the level of like Owl House or Ghost of Molly McGee or shows like that. It's just, the main character is important to a series. And to have the main character be boring compared to every other character is honestly really upsetting. But again, I don't hate her, I don't even dislike her, it's just she's boring. But there is enough about this series to keep me going, and especially with episodes like these two, it very much makes me want to continue checking it out, for now at least. So yeah, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of these episodes of Amphibia? And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.